Bonjour, ça va bien, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new video. I hope you're happy. I'm certainly not, having to talk about this trifling piece of trash. But hey, steady on. Let's introduce what this video's even about. I mean, to be fair, I don't really have to. It says it right there in the title. Velma, the Scooby-Doo spin-off absolutely nobody asked for. But now that the dust has settled and the hate trains have died down, I'm here to reignite them. Admittedly, I will say I don't think the show is the worst thing ever, as some people may have expressed it to be. I simply think it's an insult to the Scooby-Doo fans and the franchise as a whole, totally shitting on the history of Scooby-Doo. And whilst I do genuinely think there are some positives that can be pointed out, they're completely overshadowed by all the negatives. But let's go into further detail about this show and exactly why it was so hated, why it was so detested. Now, I very much realise I'm not the first person to talk about Velma, and I probably won't be the last. Velma's been tossed around like a bloody stripper at the back of a dodgy strip club when it comes to the amount of channels that have made videos on it, insulting it, making fun of it, and just really showing the blatant flaws in it. And likely you're already fully aware of the show's downfalls and deficits in its quality, at least from the perspective of a majority of people. And if you do like this show, that's fine, you do you. Enjoy it, boo. Don't let my opinion stop you from liking the show. This is simply just my perspective. So, I'm not sure if I've mentioned, but Scooby-Doo was a pivotal part of my childhood. There were very few things better than coming home after a long day at school, completing your 10th coloring book of the day and staring into the endless existence of life, and then having the glorious opportunity to come home, walk into that living room, sit down 2 inches away from the screen and place my big bulging eyeballs upon my TV screen. And what was one watching, you may be asking? Well, I'll tell you what I was watching: Scooby-Doo, and a whole bunch of other nostalgic gems that I used to watch in my childhood, but today we're talking about Scooby-Doo. Such a great feeling it was to return home, to watch the mystery gang solve mysteries that even Sherlock Holmes couldn't dream of solving. Wow, it wasn't a ghost after all, it was just Janan and some creatine. And she would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for the neighborhood crackheads. I'm sorry, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Sometimes I just ramble on and I don't even know where it's going. I'm sorry. These iconic characters are adored by people all around the world, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every single iteration of Scooby-Doo is top tier television, of course not. There have been dookies in the past, but what I can say is that from every single adaptation of Scooby-Doo that I've seen, and there's been a lot, even in the worst interpretations, there's always something good that can be taken from it. Nuggets of quality moments and things that positively differentiate it from others. But as for Velma, I might just have to say it. It's absolute garbage. Alright, perhaps I'm being too harsh. I need to give it a chance. I need to at least explain my reasonings, so let's get right into it. So admittedly, there are positives that can be taken away from this show, as much as I despise it for what it did to our characters. What did they do to you, Velma? I'll tell you exactly what they did. They stripped each character of every single bit of likability, injected absurdly unfunny humor, and completely disrespected every single fan of the Scooby-Doo franchise, and then proceeds to continuously brutalize the already dead corpse of Scooby-Doo with its incessantly unbearable script, cementing the obvious fact that the people who actually wrote this show gave zero fucks about the original characters and IP. So yes, I'll say it and I'll say it again. This show is garbage. Garbage that you find at the back of a McDonald's restaurant. The garbage that you've left in your bins for a bit too long and it's starting to stink up the entire house. The type of garbage you see in a bloody skip with rats crawling out of it. Watching this show, simply put, has drained my life force, leaving me feeling more empty than after a session of watching Pornhub. My main question is why? Why would you do this? What have the Scooby-Doo fans ever done to deserve such bloody insult? My main gripe is that these characters are nothing like what the original characters are meant to be like. There was a complete demolition on the foundation of the personalities of these characters, leaving us, the viewers, with not even a shell of their former selves, but completely unrecognizable characters, lacking many core similarities that would easier enable the fans happens to be able to correlate them to their predecessors despite how different they look. And don't get me wrong, I think the race swap of the characters is incredibly unnecessary, entirely disposing of decades-old foundational features in these character designs. And for what? Please tell me. I'd love to know. It appears rather evident that these guys didn't care for Scooby-Doo whatsoever and more so wanted to make a completely different show, using the IP of Scooby-Doo as a way to leverage its popularity so the show would do well. But surely they had to know this would fucking backfire. Anyways, what's the point I was trying to make? I went on a bit of a tangent there. Yes, I do think the remodel of the characters is absolutely unnecessary, but the crux of the issue is with the characters themselves, because whilst I do despise the decision to change the core features of the characters, if the characters were still written well within a great script and had great chemistry with each other and the stories remained fun and enthralling, the mere fact that they changed the character designs will seem way less of a big deal, if you get what I'm saying. But because the show is completely garbage, that just adds on to it. I mean, seriously, they turned Fred into an absolute bitch of a human being, completely destroying the integral nature of his character on the show. A character that in pretty much all other iterations is the leader of the group, someone who, whilst not being the smartest in the group, of course that's Velma, was brave, compassionate, reliable, and at least bloody competent. In this series, he can barely feed himself. Fred, what have they done to you? Shaggy's been diminished into an absolute pathetic simp, gooning after Velma, trying to suck at the teat of her love. She doesn't want you! Oh no, in this show she wants Daphne! Who are these people? Not only did that plot point have me absolutely discombobulated, obviously I've been used to the typical love story of Velma and Shaggy, that's how it typically is, but I guess this show decided to change things up. But analysing the execution of said relationship on its own merit without comparing it to what I'm used to, it still doesn't stand. I'm simply left with an absolutely rancid taste in my mouth, a taste of absolute disregard for the bloody IP you're using to make this show, a disregard of the fans, a disregard of the history of Scooby-Doo. Velma and Daphne's relationship feels unnatural, empty and completely inauthentic, leading me to fully roll my eyes in a 360 degree. I've still not got them working ever since. I think I need to go to the doctors. Velma has been changed from a positive, optimistic, intelligent person to a exasperatingly insufferable individual. A completely unlikable know-it-all. Long gone are her witty charms. They've been replaced by her unbridled pessimism and constant hatred of everything that is the world. HBO's Velma is a beacon of what not to do with a beloved franchise. In fact, what not to do with anything. The show's goddamn terrible. Even taken out of the context of Scooby-Doo, it's still not that good. However, one thing I can't deny, its saving grace, is the animation. The animation is fluid, crisp, and just very enjoyable to look at. And whilst yes, I did despise this show, it was able to at least slightly sustain my attention through its beautiful animation. In particular, the parts where Velma's having hallucinations, and we're taken through the abominable mind of Velma and we discover some things about her character, blah blah blah. But anyways, the animation is fantastic, and I won't deny that. But that does very little to alleviate it from its numerous, hefty flaws. To conclude this video, let me ask you a question. What's the difference between Velma and shit smeared at the bottom of a shoe? Absolutely nothing at all. Good riddance.